Hey guys, want to talk about your martial arts library today? I've got a little stack of books to recommend. I think some of these are must-reads and some of them maybe just approaching that. I've also got one to talk about that I don't own, but we'll talk about it anyway. This first one's called The Anatomy of Movement. It is a nice book about the anatomy of movement, and if you I think especially like I read this when I was a teenager, and just kind of gave me a nice basic understanding of how the major muscles and joints work. And then I still refer to this because there's so much in here that you don't absorb it all at once. And so this is a nice resource I find goes hand in hand with one of the other books I'm going to show you. But that's a nice one if you don't know much about which muscles contribute to which movements. And even learning about, the planes of movement and adduction and abduction and, rotation and some of the different terminology that you might become really familiar with, like if you were doing PT stuff and that kind of thing, is good. If you are a serious martial artist, should know some anatomy. All right, perhaps number one on the list, The Art of War, Sun Tzu's Art of War, the keys to strategy. So Sun Tzu said famously, all warfare is based on deception. So when we spar, and I think do things like that, we have a little laboratory for some of these ancient ideas, and they are ideas for handling different kinds of conflict. This is big, like, a lot of corporate guys think that this is real applicable to what they do. And I think it's an awesome martial arts book. So The Art of War, that's definitely a must read. Okay, for us, and I'm not even sure where you find this anymore, but Forces of Taekwondo, the book, the Association, United States Chun Kwan Association textbook, handbook for students and instructors, written by Grandmaster Sel and Grandmaster Sel. Written back in the day and went through a few different editions. It's got, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's got belt requirements. It's got it's got all the Taeguk forms, which we don't do anymore. It's got all the basics. It's got some stories about Grandmaster Sel and some awesome old pictures of his training and things that he learned. And just kind of the look of the whole thing is a real nostalgic thing for me. It just reminds me a little bit of how things were even like when I was a kid, although most of this happened before that. So I don't know where you get your hands on one of these, but Forces of Taekwondo, very cool. Okay, probably the best book I've read on beginning, starting to understand how strength training works. And I think there's a big crossover, man. Lots of people who are into martial arts are into lifting. And I think those two things complement each other extremely well. I think, they tend to, those arts, those activities tend to attract the same kind of person. But you could certainly hurt yourself, or just at least, if not hurt yourself, at least just kind of waste a lot of time doing things wrong or pursuing the wrong kind of strength training. You don't just grab some weights and start lifting them or start following whatever somebody at the Y is doing, because they're probably doing some stupid thing they shouldn't be doing too. So get some education about strength training if you're going to pursue that, particularly anything with a barbell. You really have to earn the right to be throwing a barbell around, because that's pretty serious stuff. You do it wrong, and you could hurt yourself. If you do it right, you could experience some tremendous benefits. So starting strength with a guy named Mark Rippetoe. A little bit of a rough fella, but good stuff. And then this massive thing, this is called Becoming a Supple Leopard. It is by Dr. Kelly Starrett, who's a big in the CrossFit community, and those guys are constantly injuring themselves. CrossFit's sort of another discussion, and he is the guy who helps them to injure themselves perhaps slightly less often, and he's a really cool coach, and this will break down sort of what to do about different movement dysfunctions. stretches and strengthening exercises and rolling out, on, foam roller techniques and that kind of thing. And it's organized just in a really brilliant way so that you can identify a pattern that is less than ideal, and you can get in there and start to apply some of this thinking. If you were interested in really understanding everything in a book like this, I think that could save you possibly some medical intervention down the line if you really knew what was going on with your body. So, all right, Supple Leopard. The last one that I don't own that I wish I owned is The Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee, which is a book that he wrote. So Bruce Lee was a for real, serious martial artist and a real innovator in the martial arts. And most people know him as a movie star. I don't particularly like karate movies all that much. There are a few that I like, but I'm not big into Bruce Lee movies. But I am big into Bruce Lee for his martial arts philosophy and for being the pioneer that he was. So back in the day, and you'll hear Grandmaster talk about this all the time, that back in the day, everybody actually had this real tribal kind of relationship with their style, where style was everything. And if you were a taekwondo guy, that was just the be all end all of the martial arts, and everything else was stupid. And the kung fu guys felt that way, and the jiu-jitsu guys felt that way. So everything was very insular, and they would argue about who was best, and they'd fight each other and that kind of stuff. And that was all pre Bruce Lee. But Bruce Lee came along and laid the foundation for kind of the currently accepted paradigm, which is, hey, it's all good. And especially being in America, which is famously a melting pot for all kinds of different things, that we can take the best from all over the world of the martial arts. And there's no reason why, if you are a taekwondo person, that you can't do some grappling or some stick drills or whatever. And that, I think you're starting to see that all over the world, and certainly in this country, where your better schools have kind of ditched the idea that there's this purity of style that's really important, and have moved more toward incorporating just things that work best. I think there are still schools where the Asian cultural, historical part of what's going on is really what they want to emphasize. So they want to keep this clean style thing going. Which, if that's what you're into, I think that's fine. There's something for everybody in the martial arts, but I'm with Bruce Lee, and I think that we should do the stuff that is the best stuff. And his book says as much, and there's a bunch of there's some kind of convoluted things in it, and I don't know if it's a cover to cover read necessarily. But it's a good reference, and just try to get inside his brain a little bit, and to read history kind of forward from the point that he was at, where nobody did that. Nobody thought to combine these different ideas, and he really made that a thing that eventually became acceptable. So do some good martial arts reading, guys, if you're serious about it. Just think about anything. Think about anything else you might be into. I don't know that you would get super serious and into any kind of topic without eventually just reading some things about it and having a good background of information. So, all right, there you go. If you got other ones that you like, then certainly share them with me. Some people say the Book of Five Rings. That's how I felt about that one, but not everyone will agree on this topic. It's very subjective. But if you have other ones you like, let me know, and we'll talk to you soon.